Hi everybody, welcome to part 3 of my video series on my indicator collection. In part 2 I talked about the dial indicators that I have, which are typically this style right here. So if you haven't seen that and you want to check out those, by all means check out part 2 of this series. Here in part 3 I'm going to be covering what's called a dial test indicator, or DTI for short. And dial test indicators, the way that they're constructed is they typically have a small arm on a pivot point, which makes them very versatile. And I'm going to show what I have here, and I'm going to talk about different styles. I want to talk about some of the classics and also some of the names that you may want to avoid, and also some of the names that are the gold standard, so to speak. So if you want to talk about tried and true classic indicators, dial test indicators, you can't have that conversation without talking about the Starrett last word indicator and the Brown and Sharpe best test indicators. I actually have 3 of these Starrett last word indicators, and it's funny, I actually have 3 of them, and the reality is I don't think I've ever used any of these. The one thing I don't like about the last word indicator is the size of the dial. You can see the size of the dial is about the size of a quarter, and it's actually really easy to read. I don't know why I'm kind of prejudiced against these, but just seem to never really have jumped on the bandwagon. These are actually very, very nice indicators, and a lot of people swear by them. I do like, and I'll tell you, one of the things it does have going for it is the dimension here. This size of this part that protrudes out from the main part of the indicator is actually pretty small compared to some of the other indicators. So I could see where reaching into a bore with this indicator would be really easy to do. So you might be able to get into some tight spaces with this indicator that you might not be able to get into with a more typical indicator. So I actually, like I said, I've got a couple of these I've picked up here and there. I don't even remember where I bought all of these. This one here is missing a point. The points are replaceable. You can put different style points on there. All of these work perfectly fine, surprisingly enough, even though they've been around the block, so to speak. This one might be a little, yeah, this one's a little sticky maybe. I think when I bought this one, it was in this case with this box, and I think I was really just going after. I was like, oh, there's some nice little hardware in here that would come in handy when mounting different indicators. So this was just kind of an extra little thing. This arm right here, I believe, is an original last word accessory. This one's in excellent shape. Probably should find a better place to put this rather than having it bang around the side here. And then I was at an estate sale, Craigslist buy, again down in, I think, Rhode Island, and there was a guy who sold me several items, and I happened to notice that he had this case sitting over here, and he had $40 on it. I looked in and I realized that it's another last word, which I didn't need, but what I liked about this one was that it looks brand new. I don't know if this has ever been used, although there is some markings on the back here, so I guess this probably was used at some point. But it's in really, really good shape, and the other thing that's kind of neat about this one is that it's in the original case with a lot, if not all, of the accessories. I've never seen one of these wrenches before. Here's that flexible multi-jointed arm that I just showed in the other one. So you can see that there's actually some extra things here. And look, even the little jar that holds the extra points is still in here. So that's really neat. There's a little warning card about keep free from oil, dust, acid, and moisture. Switch lever on the side of the 7-Eleven must be in extreme position either one way or to the other, depending on which way the indicator is to be used. Do not tamper with instrument. See, I didn't know that about that little lever on the side of those. Oh, good to know. But you can see the overall condition of the case. Looks really good. So the Starrett last word indicator. Now, you can't go wrong with a Starrett last word indicator. And there's so many of these on eBay that these can be purchased really reasonably. That being said, I want you to keep this in mind. I'm going to show you an indicator that can often be had for less money than a Starrett last word indicator, and in my opinion and many other people's opinions is actually a superior indicator to this and is very similar to this, and I'll get to that in a bit. But for right now, let's put these aside and let's look at the other big player and classic indicators that you would not be in a bad position to get, and that would be the Brown and Sharpe Best Test Indicator. Now I've got actually two versions of this. This is, you can see the original Brown and Sharpe logo here. This case is kind of, it's still in good condition. It's funny, a lot of these earlier cases, they're almost like jewelry cases. So there's some light surface rust on some of the accessories in this case, but the indicator itself is actually in really good shape, and this still works super smooth. And this is a 1/2 thousandths indicator. So Brown and Sharpe was headquartered in Providence, Rhode Island, but the reason why Best Test indicators are such great indicators is because they were actually made for Brown and Sharpe by a Swiss company. I believe these were made by Compac, C-O-M-P-A-C. And that's an important name to remember because I'm going to get to a discussion about Compac indicators. But generally speaking, well, not even generally speaking, I mean, pretty much I'll go as far as to say, without a doubt, the finest test indicators made came out of Switzerland. They're Swiss made. So anyway, so this is a Brown and Sharpe Best Test 1/2 thousandths indicator. And as nice as this indicator is, this one's even sweeter. This one, box look familiar? It's the same box, it's just in a lot nicer shape. This one, the guy even still had the original cardboard box. There's a certificate, accuracy and traceability certificate. On the side here, there's no mistaking what this is. Best Test indicator, anti-magnetic with 1.5 inch diameter dial and carbide contact point, Swiss made. So again, lots of the accessories and arms are in here, extra points, and a beautiful example of a Brown and Sharpe Best Test Swiss made indicator. Now this one, if I move the dial, the needle out of the way, I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's 4 zeros to the right of the decimal point before the number 5. So this is a 1/2 10,000ths indicator. So one of these divisions is a 1/2 of a 10,000th of an inch. That's really out there. So that's a really nice Swiss made indicator by Brown and Sharpe. So remember, I just said Compac was a Swiss manufacturer of fine indicators, and that they manufactured indicators under several names. And I also talked about how great the Starrett last words are, and that even though they can be found fairly reasonably on eBay, that there might be something else you might want to consider. Case in point, this, you can see it's got a price of 15 bucks on it. I think I even got it for less than that. So what's in here, okay, is an Allina. A-L-I-N-A. Okay, and this is a Allina number 88. And this is actually a pretty well-known indicator. The Allina 88 really came out to be in direct competition with the Starrett last word. Here's a couple more of those Allina or Allina, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, dial test indicators. These probably were made at different times because they have quite a bit different logo, but if you actually move this dial out of the way, you can actually get a better look at this one's logo. And this is a half 10,000ths indicator. And this one on the body, it's actually marked right here, made in Switzerland. And in case there was any doubt, right below on this point, it's literally marked Compac Geneva. So there's no doubt that this is an Allina that was made by Compac, and it's a Swiss made. And this one, you can see this one has a little bit of a different logo there. This is probably made at a different time. Notice this one also has a sub-dial, and this one is a tenths indicator. Okay, so it's 0.0001. This one is clearly also marked in the same location, made in Switzerland, but unlike that one, this one's not marked Compac Geneva anywhere, but there's a serial number on it. But I have no doubt, based on my research, that this is also I have no doubt that this is also a Compac. And this is a really nice indicator, and I really wish I had the case for this one. I actually got both of these indicators just from the same estate, just the way you see them. Just they were just laying in a drawer, and they work perfectly. But they're really too fine of an instrument to be just left laying around, kicking around. So I'm going to find some boxes for those. Now, I was just saying how the finest dial test indicators come out of Switzerland, and Compac is just one of the several manufacturers making fine indicators in Switzerland. And this is another company. This is a Tessa, T-E-S-A, and you can actually see this is a half thousandths indicator, 0.0005. I don't know if you can quite see that, but you see the Tessa logo, and it says Swiss made. And this is known as a Tessa test, not Tessa test. Which, oh, by the way, if you're searching for one of these on eBay, misspell it on purpose. Try T-E-S-A-T-E-S-T, because I've actually noticed sometimes people do that. But it's actually Tessa test. You can actually see it right here. If I move the dial out of the way, it's kind of finicky. All right. But this is also a very well made indicator. And to scoop this, this was at a flea market for 12 bucks. I think I lumped into it some other stuff and got it for 10 bucks. 10 bucks for a Swiss made indicator. Oh yeah, we'll do that all day long. That's a nice little indicator though. And the other Swiss manufacturer of dial test indicators that's revered is the Interapid. This is an older model. It actually still works perfectly fine though. And these tend to still bring good money on the resale market. This particular one is a half thousandths indicator, again 0.0005. You can clearly see it's marked Interapid. I can't quite see the model number on this one. I think it's a I think this is a 312B1. So this is actually a pretty popular model. I've seen a lot of these online. The quality of the construction is really nice, nicely made indicator. And again, this is an Interapid indicator. This is Swiss made, and it's a very nice quality indicator. I'm going to have a hard time deciding actually, because I know a lot of guys are probably like, oh, without a doubt, you keep the Interapid. But the thing is, that Allina is a pretty nice indicator also. All right, and speaking of Interapid, this is an older Interapid indicator. I bought this off of a guy at an estate sale. He had beat me to it. He was early in line and basically bought an entire toolbox there with its contents. And before the estate sale opened, I struck up a conversation with him, and we agreed that he'd be willing to sell me a couple of items out of there that he wasn't really interested in. One of which was this Interapid indicator, and it was funny, we had settled on a price, and then I had realized that the indicator's not working. So the problem, this actually looks like it's in really good condition. The problem with it is that there's no deflection whatsoever of the needle when you move the probe. So I have no idea what's wrong with this. I'm probably going to send this out and have it repaired. But it was funny, once we realized there was a problem with it, he still stuck to his price on this thing, which kind of annoyed me. But I had wanted one of these for a while. The interesting thing about this is that this is a vertical dial model. So this is actually, this is marked Interapid jeweled. This is marked, this is a 310B-V, I think. Well, actually, it's marked 310B-IV, which is the Roman numeral for 4. So I'm not sure. But anyways, it's in like mint condition, so I'm really surprised that it doesn't work. But I'm thinking I'm going to have this. I'm going to have this sent out and get it repaired, and keep it for myself, because, like I said, I just always, you know, not always, but for a while now, I've been thinking, oh, it'd be nice to have a one with a horizontal dial like this. Would that be vertical or horizontal, the dial? I don't know. Anyways, you get the idea. And actually, my want of one of these styles is what led me to one of my less proud purchases, which I will show you now. So not once, but twice now, I made the what I believe is an error in judgment by purchasing a couple of Federal dial test indicators. And the first one, I thought, wow, what a score, because this is when I was chasing one of these styles with the face oriented this way, and I was like, oh, great. And this indicator, believe it or not, actually works perfectly fine. It's got the crystal here, this little plastic lens, does not want to stay in position. It keeps popping out, so I'm not quite sure exactly what the fix is for that. Probably replacement of this is the way to go. And I was going to send this one out also and have it repaired. What this is this is a Test Master by Federal, and this is a tenths indicator. The problem with the Test Masters well, actually, I should back up a second. So why did I jump all over this? Well, because in my naivete, back in those days, which wasn't that long ago actually, I inadvertently got the Tessa test indicators confused with Test Master. And you can see the kind of close in name there, but a Tessa test indicator, or Tessa test as we now know, is a Swiss-made precision indicator. It's good quality. This, on the other hand, Test Master, well, so there seems to be some disagreement even among the experts as to whether or not these indicators are any good. Even on Long Island Indicator's website, where I was able to find a lot of information about, basically it's their opinions on a lot of different indicators, and a lot of it is really good information. But there was a section where they talked about federal indicators, and then there was another section where they talked about Test Master indicators. So in one area, they talk about Test Master indicators as being some of the most horrible indicators made. But then there was, I think under like the federal area, where they talked about, there was another statement that almost led me to believe that maybe there was a point when federal Test Master indicators were well made, but I think they said that they were now obsolete, that they were old, and they're no longer able to acquire parts for them. That being said, there's a lot of indicators that they say that they won't service because they're not able to acquire parts for. But I know that the one of the other guys who is really heavy into indicator repair, that he'll still work on these indicators. So as a matter of fact, even that Interapid I just showed you, I think that's an obsolete Interapid model, and some guys won't touch it. But so getting back to this is something that I was going to send out and get repaired and keep, and then I came to find out that, like I said, that it's apparently not that great. So this is marked Federal Products Corporation, Providence, Rhode Island, Test Master Model 6. And there's nothing on here to indicate that it was made in Switzerland or anything like that. So, well, anyway, so that's that one. And then I don't remember whether or not I acquired this next one before or after that last one, but it's another Test Master. This one has this strange discoloration problem. I don't know whether or not that's actually okay. I'm not sure whether or not that's actually on the face or if it's on the underside of the crystal here. So this, again, not knowing whether or not it's really that great, but quality-wise, this one is marked full jeweled. Okay, Test Master. This apparently is a model LT-2, and it's a tenths indicator. And this actually might be a good serviceable indicator. It seems to work perfectly fine. And like I said, if it's just a matter of putting a new crystal on this plastic on here to, restore it to its original good looks, that might be something I might end up doing. Although I don't really need that one, so then that always becomes the catch-22. If I send it out and I have it serviced and a new face put on it, a new crystal put on it, what I end up paying to have that done, am I going to be able to get that back when I go to sell it? Maybe not. I'll have to see what the current value of this one is on eBay. This one too. And we got one more dial test indicator to show you, and this would be what I would call a good alternative dial test indicator for somebody that does not want to shell out the money for a Compac or Interapid or Tessa. And this is a Mitutoyo. This is a 513-202. It's a tenths indicator, or is it a half thousandths? Yeah, it's a 1/2 thousandths indicator. And this seems to work perfectly fine. I didn't pay too much for this one. This, I figured originally I think this was going to be my go-to indicator, and then I ended up getting the Interapids and the Allina indicators. So this I could probably, I don't know, I haven't decided yet if I'm going to part with this one. It really depends. I mean, if it's just not worth that much money, it might not even be worth it for me. It might be just better off for me to throw it in the toolbox and keep it as a spare. I can't remember if I found this box in a toolbox that I bought, or whether or not I just picked it up at a flea market for a couple of bucks at somebody's table. But it's kind of hard to see. But this actually says Brown and Sharpe Company, Providence, Rhode Island, USA on the top. And it sure looks like it housed the dial test indicator. But neither of the best test indicators that I have has a dial small enough to fit into this cutout. And there's even a few little points in there. So this is exactly how I found this. I think I only gave a couple of bucks for this because I thought, well, I actually thought I might have an indicator somewhere that would fit this box, but I don't. But I don't know if anybody out there happens to know what fits in this. I guess I could probably do a quick enough scan of eBay and eventually find one that had a wooden box like this. One nice little box, though, actually, That's how they used to pack some of these things in the day. So I'm getting ready to wrap up this series on indicators, and I just wanted to show you these 4 indicators here that I have. These, I guess, more are close to the dial indicators we did in part 2, as opposed to the dial test indicators we just went through. But the reason why I didn't show these originally was because these are what are called plunge back indicators. And this is the Starrett version of this. This is actually a pretty popular one. I think I've seen, on several occasions, I've seen these in the classic red case like my last word is in. And they tend to, with the accessories and everything in the case, these tend to bring pretty decent money still. This one is pretty sick. It's sticking really badly. It's got some dings on it here on the face. Somebody really just beat the snot out of this thing, which is a shame. But you can see this is what they call a plunge back indicator. It's got this button on the back, okay, and the idea being that this would be able to make contact with what you wanted to indicate, like say something revolving in the lathe, and makes it really easy to read the face because of the way it's oriented. This one is a federal version of that same type of indicator. This I picked up, I think, for 15 bucks at one of the shows I went to, and this is actually, I thought this was such a great deal because it's so clean. But it turns out, because it's a federal, it's just not that prized. So again, this is probably going to be one of the ones I'll just keep for myself because I'm not going to get rich off of it, that's for sure. This is full jeweled, and this is a thousandths indicator, and I think this is actually marked VB1. It might be V81, not sure. Last but not least, got 2 with like 2-inch dial sizes. So these almost look just like drop indicators that I have. Even the face is identical, really. But these are plunge back indicators, just like I just showed you. This one actually works really well. And here's a older one, and this one I believe is marked carrier. So this is actually the sister to the carrier drop indicator that I showed in part 1. So anyways, it's supper time, which is the perfect time for me to call this quits. I hope you guys enjoyed looking at these videos, and Maybe down the road we'll do something else. Maybe we'll do another series on something I have too many of. I don't know. Take care.